Tips Analysis. I hope you're feeling positive because this is the Introverted Positron and welcome to another episode of Tips Analysis. Today I want to talk about a topic that I accidentally brought up in a previous video and one that I've wanted to talk about for a little while, to be honest. And it is a topic specifically on my feelings on the Wii, the Wii U, and now the Switch. Now, this is... I said something really stupid in the previous video. I wouldn't say the console was lacking in games. I would say more that it was lacking in good games. Yeah. I don't hate the Wii. It kind of gives off that impression. I know I said I didn't there, but I really don't hate the Wii. However, it's not my favorite Nintendo console. I mean, of course there's always exceptions like stuff like the Virtual Boy and stuff, but I haven't personally tried those things. But in terms of mainline Nintendo consoles that have been successful, and the Wii is a particularly successful console, I find I don't like it as much as some of the others. I still enjoy the console. It still has lots of content I enjoy, like Mario Galaxy, Xenoblade Chronicles, Trauma Center, and lots of other things right here. Actually, there's less here than I thought there would be. But the point is that there is a lot for the system I enjoy, but there's a lot about the system that I don't. So for instance, mostly has to do with the fact that Nintendo decided to focus on motion controls. Now, that in and of itself isn't a problem to me. I don't mind changing up controls in games as long as it's done in such a way that it's actually integrated into the games that the system has. But the thing with the Wii is that it was never really used. Like, we got motion controls, but the vast majority of games just used it to kind of replace buttons. Even Mario Galaxy, to be completely honest, the spin jump did not need to be a motion control option. I never found that it was really all that useful as a motion control option, and the motion controls in the game, although I found were decent, never really contributed to my overall experience in the games being greater or less than. Now, there are exceptions, of course. There's the obvious exception of Wii Sports, which was designed for the Wii specifically. There's Skyward Sword, which is controversial, but I do enjoy that game quite a bit. And there's also many other titles that do use it, but not enough to really justify the system having the motion controls. And that's kind of the thing, is that when they put so much money into developing a system to have motion controls, it makes me think that I would have rather have seen a system that could do more, that could have produced something that even looked better. Like, for instance, Xenoblade Chronicles is an amazing game on the system, but it's something that I almost wish was on the Wii U or the Switch. And that's not because I don't love it being on the Wii, and it's not because I don't love the fact that it adds to the Wii's library, but it's because in that case, as amazing as it is that that game can actually run on the system, because it doesn't seem like a game that should, it would be nice to see an upgraded version on other systems. Now, that's beside the point. That's not a huge downfall for the game for me. Its graphics are not something that's really big issue for me, but it would have been good to see some bigger games for the system outside of just Xenoblade, and I think that was something that did hold it back to an extent. And for the most part, I honestly don't care about those things. But in some cases, I do when it has to do with certain types of games and certain games that could have been on the system that just weren't. And that's kind of the whole thing with this system, is I feel that even though it was a very successful system, it kind of relied on that gimmick to sell it, and it did sell incredibly well. I'm never going to deny that it was a success for Nintendo, because it was. But it did kind of lead to the Wii U's failure in a sense. And not incomplete and whole, but because of the fact that people lost interest in the Wii before it had even finished. Like, didn't just lose interest, they stopped playing lots of games on it because games weren't coming out. Like, people just didn't care about the system anymore. And I'm not saying that was true for everybody. I still played the system as much as I could. Donkey Kong Country Returns, I think, came up pretty close to the end, which is a pretty fun game. Among other things, Xenoblade Chronicles was right at the end of the Wii's lifespan. And those are very enjoyable games, but nonetheless, nobody cared about the Wii name anymore. They didn't see it as a good thing on Nintendo's part, and then they used it to advertise the Wii U. And I know that there were definitely some issues with people being confused about what the Wii U was in relation to the Wii when it was a brand new system. And that's a whole other issue. But the point is that using the Wii as a marketing strategy for the Wii U was a mistake because of the progression of the Wii's audience. The Wii's main audience, which was just people who were buying into a new technology, didn't care about the Wii U, because the Wii U is actually a console I love, and it's because the Wii U did in many ways focus more on its games, and that I know sounds weird because the Wii U is often criticized for not having many games at all, but it has some really good games. Like, as much as there's not tons of games released for the system, I'd say that in terms of the number of games released for the system, I think it has a better ratio of good games to bad games than the Wii, just because the Wii had a lot of party games that were kind of bad, and that's what I meant by subpar party games. It was just developers who weren't putting any effort into the party games and just kind of like pushed them out, basically, because it was easy to do in the system and it was the easiest seller in the system because of the audience that bought it. But the thing with the Wii U is that I actually really like it because it has a ton of games that I really like some of my favorite games in different series. I mean, this is an example of an old series, but one series that I love that was introduced was The Wonderful 101. It was also the first time I played Bayonetta, which was fun. There's also Super Mario 3D World, which I actually enjoy more than Galaxy, which I guess I'm going to have to talk about in some other video, but that's personal. And it's also even Smash 4. Smash Bros. For Wii U is my favorite Smash Bros. Personally, and there might be people who watching that who I know who are not going to like me for that, but I really like the game. I really find that it's always fun for me to play with others, and I always find that it's very fun to play as a multiplayer game. And that's something that I really like for my Smash Bros. Games. But that being said, I understand the problems with the system. Even though there are lots of games I like, including the remakes of Zelda, including the fact that there is no mainline Zelda game that's exclusive to the system, the fact that Nintendo did have trickling games throughout the entire lifespan, the fact that third parties didn't support the system at all, which to be honest isn't too big of a surprise because they didn't really support it all that well with the Wii. Yes, there was a lot of third-party games for the Wii, but it wasn't really a lot of quality third-party games. The only ones I can really think off of the top of my head are like Trauma Center, maybe Dawn of the New World if you like Tales of Symphonia Dawn of the New World, and Okami are really the only third-party games I can think of, but that doesn't mean that's all. Don't take that as being all. But the point is that the system didn't have a lot of support either. But the Wii U's third-party support was like abysmal, even in comparison. And like that's beside the point. That's all getting into the bigger issues on that. I just like the Wii as a console because of its functionality. Because I actually prefer the Wii U gamepad to the addition of motion controls. And yes, motion controls are there, but they're a lot more subtle. Going from the Wii, they kind of learned that they could implement motion controls a little bit more subtly into games rather than making it the focus, which meant that we have stuff like Splatoon that just uses it to make it so that you can aim really quickly now with motion controls, with the gyro controls in your Pro Controller, in the in the Joy-Cons, in the Wii U gamepad, and that's a good addition because that's a better extension of what motion controls can be used for. But it's also because of the fact that it used that second screen as much as it could have used it more. I feel like it was a justified gimmick because it actually was used. Like, I felt like inventory management and maps was more than enough to justify the Wii U in and of itself. The only issue with that was the fact that the gamepad itself was outdated when it came out, like highly outdated. They could have, I feel like, and again, don't quote me on this because I don't know these things in depth, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe that if they waited a couple more years, they could have made a much slimmer tablet for a lot less, and it would have been a much cheaper console with the same capabilities if they just waited a year, or even, if they just waited a couple of years and started developing it later. But they got into it too late, and so they made something that didn't make a lot of sense for the environment that it was in, and it's just, you have this bulky controller that a lot of people didn't like. Although I didn't mind it, I do understand that it would have been nicer to have a slimmer version of that, and that would have been good. That would have been very good. But that's the thing with the Wii U, is that it did make its mistakes, but I think that when it comes to the Wii U in particular, the Wii U, or Wii to Wii U transfer, I think that Nintendo understood their mistakes there, and that's where we have the Switch, because instead of continuing the Wii name with the Switch, they decided to break away from the Wii name, mostly because it didn't work for the Wii U, but also because nobody really wants another Wii. Not because it's not a console that's going to be remembered, it was an incredibly successful console, but because it's a console that didn't hold people's attention in perhaps the way that many people would have wanted, myself included. And that's what they needed to move on from, and they did with the Switch. And that also, and again, also has to do with the failure of the Wii U. But with the Switch now, they've done so much with software in the first year. They've done everything and I love the game, all the different kinds of controllers for the Switch. I'm really enjoying, especially since now GameCube controllers are compatible with the system, I believe, which I need to try out. But I love the Pro controller. The Joy-Cons are nice, and they're a good set of controllers to come with the system, especially since it's basically 2 controllers. And I'm just loving the system overall. I think it actually has a lot of potential to be my favorite Nintendo console over the GameCube, which is my current favorite. And that's saying something. It's just because of how many amazing games have come out this first year. I mean, there's obviously Zelda and Mario, but even Splatoon 2 has been a lot of fun. Mario Rabbids I've enjoyed a lot. And it's been an amazing time with the Switch so far, and looking forward, it looks to be just as good as we go forward, and I hope that keeps up. If it does, then the Switch could be my all-time favorite console, especially if Metroid Prime 4 ends up being as awesome as I hope it is. In fact, let's just hope for a new Metroid Prime trilogy. I doubt it, but I can hope. Anyway, yeah, to be honest, that's pretty much it. But what we come to with the Switch, and from the progression of that, is the fact that they had to make those mistakes in the past and learn from them. We had to get the Wii, to get to the Wii U, to get to the Switch, because Nintendo needed to learn those mistakes, even if they were mistakes that didn't necessarily have to be learned that way. Those were the mistakes that had to be made to get to where we are now. And I don't think that where we are now with Nintendo is a bad thing. I think that we're in a very good spot in terms of the console, and hopefully in terms of the software and the games that they're going to be releasing in the next few years. And it makes me very excited to see what my favorite company, and yes, I know that's going to get me a lot of backlash from some people, but yes, my favorite company is going to be doing from here on out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps with the channel, and it's always appreciated. I'm going to leave some links here so you can go check out some other stuff on my channel, or you can always just search the channel. There's lots of stuff for people, playlists, and all that stuff. And so on that note, thank you again. Have a great day, and remember to keep positive.